Ayun, a good day to everyone. So for this video lecture, I'm going to talk about the uh, gene interaction. So this topic will be the last. These topics will be the last topics for chapter 2. So for this lecture, I'm going to talk about the what is novel phenotypes na tinatawag, what is recessive epistasis, dominant epistasis, then what is complementary genes, at saka yung duplicate genes na tinatawag. So all of this, lahat ng binanggit ko, it has something to do with how genes interact with each other. Kasi mostly, like for example, itong recessive epistasis, uh, yung mga genes that are recessive, meron yan effect doon sa phenotype, yung uh, lalabas na characteristic ng organism. So, yun yung pag-uusapan natin. So, when we say gene interaction, this is a phenomenon where the effects of one gene are modified by one or several other genes. So, yun yung gene interaction. May interaction doon sa gene. Yun lang yung ano niya, yung simplest explanation niya. Merong mga interaction na nagaganap sa mga genes natin which can parang affect yung which can affect yung other genes and can modify yung effect ng other genes. So another definition is it is a two different genes that acts together to modify a phenotype. So yun, yung dalawang gene na yun nag-interact with each other. They will work together. Nag-interact sila para ma-modify yung phenotype. So maraming mangyayari, maraming interaction yon tulad ng nabanggit ko kanina, maraming interaction na magaganap at medyo complicated at complex yung mga interaction na yon para which can result to different phenotypes na tinatawag. So, first, let's discuss what is novel phenotype. So, novel phenotype na tinatawag, novel is new. So yun, new phenotype. So it is yung novel phenotypes, it often result from the interaction of two genes. So like for example, yung gene A at saka gene B, nag-interact sila, this may result to novel phenotypes na tinatawag. So in novel phenotypes, there is a complete dominance in both gene pair. So I hope matatandaan pa kung ano yung complete dominance. So, di ba, pag sinabi natin complete dominance yung isang gene doon sa complete dominance yung isang gene from the other gene, yung effect ng completely dominant na gene, yun yung lalabas na phenotype or characteristic ng animal. So, dito sa novel phenotype, yung dalawang gene, completely dominant sila. So, walang recessive na gene sa kanila. Completely dominant. So, ano bang mangyayari? So, kung sa novel phenotypes, completely dominant silang dalawa in both gene pair, then yung kalalabasan will be new phenotype. So, yung new phenotype, ito na yung novel phenotype na tinatawag natin. So, yung novel phenotype or yung new phenotype na tinatawag, it may result from the interaction between yung dominance natin or yung interaction between both homozygous recessive. So, yun yung pwedeng gene interaction niya dito sa novel phenotype. So, an example of this is yung comb shape ng ano natin, ng manok natin. So, you have yung rose comb, pea comb, walnut comb, single comb na tinatawag. So, doon sa novel phenotype na yon, doon sa mga comb type ng chicken, so like for example, you have here rose na ano. So, yung rose na comb type, yung nagdi-dictate is yung ito, yung R gene. at saka yung P gene, yung dominant R gene at saka yung recessive na P gene. And then yung P-type naman or P-type na P-com type, yung nagdi-dictate is yung recessive R at saka yung dominant P. So pag krinos mo itong dalawang ito, yung rose at saka yung P, ang kalalabasan will be a walnut type na walnut type na ang tawag dito na comb type. Now, pag krinos mo itong walnut type with each other, ito yung kalalabasan na 9:3:3:1. So, there will be 9 walnut type na makikita mo, then tatlong rose type na makikita mo, tatlong P-type, and then isang single type. So, sa novel phenotype, di ba yung sa completely dominant. So, you can see, pag dominant silang pareho, ang kalalabasan will be walnut. Pero pag isa lang sa kanila yung dominant or isa lang sa kanila yung recessive, pwedeng yung kalalabasan is rose or yung P. And then, if yung silang dalawa, yung gene ay recessive na dalawa, it will become single. So, yung interaction na ngayon dito is yung gene na P and yung gene na R, it will produce walnut comb. While yung interaction between yung recessive P at saka yung recessive R will produce ngayon yung single comb. So, yun. So, di ba dito kanina, makikita, pag may present ng dominant R, dapat yung kalalabasan na comb type is rose. Or yung kung may present ng dominant P, dapat yung kalalabasan na comb type is P. Pero, tignan mo dito, meron siya nung presence ng dominant na R at saka may presence siya ng dominant na P. So, meron ka ngayong novel phenotype or meron new phenotype na maproproduce. Hindi siya rose, hindi siya P, kundi walnut type na yung comb type niya. So, yun yung novel phenotype. Yung interaction ng dalawang gene, yung dominant gene na yun, it will produce a novel phenotype or a new phenotype. Same with this, with this interaction between yung recessive natin. So, makikita naman, sa rose type na comb type, dapat may recessive P or may recessive P ka dyan. Dito may recessive R. So, it dictates na dapat rose or P yung lalabas. Pero, tignan mo dito, may recessive R ka, tsaka may recessive P, yung lalabas is a new phenotype ulit, novel phenotype ulit, which is yung single comb type na natin. So, yun yung novel phenotypes for gene interaction na tinatawag. So, yun lang. As simple as that. Basta, as the name implies, kung para matandaan natin, novel phenotype is new phenotype. Yung interaction ng dalawang gene na yun, it will produce new phenotypes or novel phenotypes na tinatawag. Then, let's go naman doon sa next gene interaction which is doon sa recessive epistasis na tinatawag. So, sa recessive epistasis naman, there is a complete dominance in both gene pairs, but one gene when homozygous recessive hides or masks the effect of the other. So, yun yung parang interaction niya. So, yung dalawang gene daw, meron silang complete dominance. So, pero pag yung isang gene, homozygous recessive. So, ano nga ba yung homozygous recessive kanina? Yung it pertains to the small letter. So, pag meron daw homozygous recessive doon sa gene pair, it will hide or mask the effect of the other. So, let's take this for example. So, yung dominant gene na A, it will produce yung agouti, which is dominant to the black na color, which dictates yung recessive. So, meaning, yung dominant A, agouti yung kalalabasan, and then yung recessive A, black yung kalalabasan. So, yung agouti natin, it will be dominant to the black. Now, for the C, yung sa gene pair na C, ay yung gene na C, yung dominant C, it pertains to the color expression. At saka yung recessive C natin, it pertains to the color inhibition. So meaning, yung dominant C natin, it will be, yung color expression will be dominant to the color inhibition. So laging tatandaan yung role natin na yan para maano natin yung sa example. So here, you have here yung crosses. So, di ba kanina, yung recessive A, it will dictate yung color na black. Now, yung dominancy naman, it will dictate yung color expression. So, meaning, itong gene pair na to, it will express yung color na black. Now, dito naman, so, di ba kanina, sinasabi na yung dominant A, it will dapat it will parang it will show the color na agouti pag mayroon present ng dominant A, di ba? Then yung recessive C naman, it pertains dun sa color inhibition. So yun yung recessive epistasis na tinatawag. Kasi yung kalalabasan is albino. Dapat, di ba dapat pag merong dominant na color, ay dominant A, ang kalalabasan dapat is agouti. Pero dahil doon sa presence nung recessive, di ba, doon sa rule natin, if there is a presence of homozygous, dalawang recessive, homozygous recessive, doon sa gene pair, it will mask the effect ngayon ng other gene. So kahit na dominant A ito, kung may presence siya nung recessive C, na yon, yung recessive, homozygous recessive na kalalabasan niya hindi agouti kundi albino. Now, pag krinos mo itong dalawang ito, magiging agouti na siya. Bakit? Kasi wala na yung presence ng homozygous recessive. Heterozygous na lang yung makikita mo. Heterozygous A, heterozygous Z. So, nagiging agouti na siya. Bakit? First, tulad ng sinabi ko, wala na yung present nung homozygous recessive. And third, dahil heterozygous na sila, yung magdidictate na ngayon is yung dominant, which is yung dominant A at saka yung dominant C. Now, yung A natin, it pertains to the color agouti. Yung C natin, it pertains to the color expression. So, pag krinos mo itong dalawang ito, na-express na ngayon yung color na agouti. Due to the two reasons na sinabi ko kanina. Now, pag naman krinos mo ito, dalawang ito, krinos mo, ay itong agouti na to, krinos mo with each other. Krinos mo yung F1 generation na agouti. Ito yung kalalabasan. 9:3:3:1. Dapat yung kalalabasan pala. Pero yung nangyari, it will become 9:3:4 na lang. Bakit? Tignan mo dito. May presence siya ng homozygous recessive na C. So, yung kalalabasan, it will mask the effect of the dominant A, kaya nagiging albino pa rin siya. Dito naman, meron rin siya nung presence nung homozygous recessive C. So, again, in recessive epistasis, it will mask the effect of the other gene. So, it will mask the effect of the recessive A, which dictates the color black. So, nagiging albino na lang siya. So, yun. So, yun yung recessive epistasis. Yung interaction niya, the homozygous recessive is epistatic to the agouti and black. So, yun lang. So, yun, tatandaan lang doon sa recessive epistasis is that yung basta kung may present ng homozygous recessive doon sa gene pair, it will mask the effect of the other gene. So, yun lang yung laging tatandaan doon. So, ito yung kalalabasan na ngayon. Yung parang diagram ng sinasabi ko. So, ito yung parang sinasabi nating agouti color, parang light brown. Then, nagcro-cross ka, tignan nyo dito sa homozygous recessive, yung mga gene pair na may homozygous recessive, dapat albino lahat sila kasi namamas yung effect ng dalawang color na black and agouti. Pag sinasabi naman nating dominant epistasis, there is a complete dominance in both gene pairs, but one gene when dominant hides or masks the effect of the other. So, basically, this kabaliktaran ito ng recessive epistasis. Di ba sa recessive epistasis, pag may presence ng homozygous recessive doon sa gene pair, it will mask the effect of the other gene. Dito naman, if yung isang gene dominant, it will hide or mask the effect of the other. So, hindi kinakailangan na homozygous sila. Basta merong nagpakita ng dominant na color, it will hide or mask the effect of the other gene. So, since completely dominant sila, kung sino yung parang it will show yung pinaka-dominant sa kanila, yun yung maipapakita na phenotype. So, let's take into for example, yung color of squash. So, yung white na dominant W, it pertains to the white which is dominant to the multicolor na homozygous recessive W. Tapos, yung Y naman natin, dominant Y natin, it pertains to the yellow color of this squash which is dominant to the recessive na gene, homozygous recessive natin, which is yung green. Now, in a cross between these two, ito yung kalalabasan, white. So, meaning, ito yung dominant na ano natin. That will, itong W na to, ito yung parang dominant which will mask the effect of the other genes. So, as you can see, yung dominant na W, it pertains to the white. Dominant Y, it will pertains to the yellow kasi dominant sila. Pag krinos mo, magiging ganito po. So, bakit hindi naging yellow? Mayroon namang dominant na Y. Bakit naging white lang siya? So, meaning, ito yung dominant natin that will mask off the effect of the other gene, regardless if it is recessive or dominant. So, yung kalalabasan na, if you cross this F1 generation with each other, ito na yung kalalabasan. Di ba kay Mendel kasi, 9:3:3:1 yung nakita niya. Pero dahil in the case of dominant epistasis, magiging 12:3:1 na siya. Bakit? Kasi may presence siya nung W. So, for example, dito sa part na to, meron itong W. Itong W which is dominant, it will mask the effect of the other genes. So, magiging white pa rin siya. Kasi, yung dominant na W, it pertains to the white color of the squash. So, here ulit, meron rin yung present ng W. So, kahit na anong gene pa yun, yung kasama, it will mask the effect of it. So, magiging white pa rin siya. So, yun. And then, dito naman, wala kang nakita, recessive, homozygous recessive yung W. Then, meron ka nung present nung Y. So, nagiging yellow. So, yun yung interaction lang. Dominant white, itong dominant white na to, it will hide the effect of the yellow or green. So, yun yung dominant epistasis. The presence of a dominant gene will mask the effect of the other genes. Now, another example, kasi yun yung isang type, unang type ng dominant epistasis. Dito naman sa dominant epistasis na second type, there is a complete dominance among gene pairs, but one gene when dominant is epistatic to the second. If yung second, when the second gene is homozygous recessive, it is epistatic to the first. So, parang medyo confusing to So, sinasabi daw na there is a complete dominance among gene pairs. Pero, pag yung isang gene, uh, if dominant siya, it is epistatic to the second. Tapos, when the second gene naman is homozygous recessive, it is epistatic to the first. So, let's illustrate mamaya yan. So, let's take for example yung feather color. Now, yung dominant eye, it will pertain to the color inhibition. So, ini-inhibit niya yung color which is dominant to the color expression yung recessive, homozygous recessive eye natin. Tapos, yung dominancy natin, it will pertain to the color which is dominant to the non-color which is yung homozygous recessive natin. So, okay, let's illustrate. So, let's take for example ito. Krinos mo. Okay, krinos mo na siya. So, mag-focus tayo dito. Dapat, yung kalalabasan pa rin, 9:3:3:1 kasi yun yung nasa law of Mendel. Pero, dahil sa dominant epistasis, naging 13:1 siya. So, bakit yun? So, first, ito. Bakit naging white siya? Kasi, yung unang rule natin, if yung dominant natin, if yung isang dominant, if there is a presence of one dominant, it is epistatic to the other gene. So, itong I natin, di ba, color inhibition yan. So, hindi na i-express yung color. Walang expression na naganap. So, magiging white pa rin siya. So, yun yung explanation nito. For this, meron pa rin yung dominant I. So, yung dominant eye, color inhibition, ini-inhibit niya yung color. So, white pa rin. So, yung non-color or yung inhibition ng color, it will result pa rin sa white. White pa rin yun. Walang kulay. Basta pure white lang. So, yun. So, because of the presence of these two, if of this dominant eye, which pertains to the color inhibition, nagiging white. Nagiging white yung mga feather color ng manok. Now dito, bakit white? Wala namang present ng dominant na eye. Wala naman yung presence ng gene that will dictate color inhibition. Yung nandito is homozygous recessive eye naman which pertains to the color expression. So dapat may na-express na color. Dapat colored yung manok. Dapat hindi siya white. So, bakit naging white pa rin siya? Dahil dito sa second rule natin na kung saan, kung may present ka ng homozygous recessive, it will prevent the color. Even when there is a gene that pertains to color expression na. Kaya nagiging white pa rin siya. So, yun. Yung sa dominant epistasis na type 2, yung letter B, yun yung rule. Kung may dominant, like for example, dito sa example, yung dominant natin is yung I, inihinhibit na yung color nung gene, nung ibang gene. Ini-inhibit niya yung effect ng other gene. Now, kahit walang dominant, if may presence ng homozygous recessive, it will prevent pa rin yung color. So, even if yung dominant inhibitor is absent. As you can see on the diagram. Now, dito, bakit? Kasi, dominancy na siya. Then, merong dominancy na siya. Tapos, ito, homozygous recessive na, which pertains to color expression na. So, nagiging colored na siya. So, yun lang. So, yung interaction niya, yung dominant color inhibitor natin, itong I, it prevents color even when color gene is present. Even if there is color gene na present, magiging white pa rin siya. Now, yung color gene na homozygous recessive, ito, when it is homozygous recessive, it will prevent color even when the dominant inhibitor is absent. Kahit na recessive na to, nandito sa part na to, magiging white pa rin siya. So, yun lang. Yung dominant epistasis. Now, for complementary genes naman na tinatawag, there is complete dominance in both gene pairs, but either recessive homozygote is epistatic to the effect of the other gene. So, paano nga ba yan? So, ang example natin is yung flower color of P. So, yung dominant P pertains to the purple, which is dominant to the recessive P, which is yung white. Now, yung dominant C natin will pertain to the color, expression ng color, which is dominant to the non-color, walang kulay. So sa diagram na to, makikita itong natin, 9:7. So, yung yung purple lang, if meron kang present ng dominant P at saka meron ka nung present ng dominant C. Tapos, lahat na pwedeng na genotype, white na lahat sila. Kasi meron ka nitong homozygous recessive C or homozygous recessive P. Kaya nagiging white na lang sila. So yung interaction, the gene P and C produce enzymes that catalyze successive steps in a chemical process that leads to the production of the pigment. So yung P and C daw na nagpro-produce yan ng mga enzyme for the pigment na purple. So yun, pag wala na yun, pag wala na itong PNC, hindi na sila makakapag-catalyze ng mga chemical process to produce yung pigment. Kaya nagiging white na lang lahat sila. Kaya kung may present ka man ng P, kahit may present ka ng dominant P, which pertains to the purple, kung wala yung dominant C, magiging white pa rin siya. And then, same here, dahil wala ka, kahit may present ka ng dominant C, kung wala yung present ng dominant P, magiging white pa rin siya. So, yun yung complementary gene. Yung dominant P at saka dominant C, nagko-complement yan to express the color purple. So, yun, ito yung niya. Yung gene P, nagpro-produce ng enzyme P, which is used as a precursor. And then, yung gene C nagpro-produce rin ng enzyme C, which is used also as a precursor to produce yung purple. So, yung enzyme P, it is used as a precursor to produce yung white. And then, because complementary silang dalawa, yung na-produce na enzyme C, it will use as a precursor para ma-transform ngayon yung white into purple. So, yun yung complementary genes natin. Then, for the duplicate genes na tinatawag, there is a complete dominance in both gene pair, but either genes, when dominant, is epistatic to the other. So, yun daw. Pag dominant sila with each other, when dominant, yung dalawang gene pair, epistatic sila with each other. So, example is yung shape na if yung dominant A, triangular siya, which is dominant to yung ovoid natin. Doon naman sa isang pair, ganun na rin. Kasi dominant siya, triangular din, which is dominant to the ovoid na recessive B. So, ganyan. triangular siya kasi meron siya nung present nung A at saka meron siya nung present nung B. Then dito naman sa isa, ovoid siya kasi wala yung dalawang dominant A and B. Puro homozygous recessive A at saka homozygous recessive B. Now, pag krinos mo ito, ito yung kalalabasan. May dominant A at saka may dominant B, kaya yung kalalabasan pa rin nung shape is triangular. Now, if you cross this with each other, ito yung kalalabasan. Ito na yung kalalabasan. 15:1. So, sa duplicate gene, both of the dominant genes on the gene pair, it will pertain to yung shape natin, which is yung triangular. Kaya dito sa una, meron ka nung A at saka meron ka nung B. Dominant A at saka dominant B. So, triangular yon. Magiging triangular yon. Dito naman, may present ka ng homozygous recessive B, pero may present ka rin ng dominant A. So, magiging triangular pa rin yan kasi nga may present ka pa rin ito. Same here, may present ka ng homozygous recessive A, pero meron ka nitong dominant na B. So, magiging triangular pa rin siya. Pero dito sa last na to, wala kang present ng dominant A or wala kang present ng dominant B. So, yung present lang sa gene mo, sa gene pair mo is homozygous recessive A or B. So, magiging ovoid siya. So, yung interaction, a dominant allele at either gene pair hides the effect of the ovoid. So, basta may present ka nung dominant allele, regardless kung ano na yung kasama dun sa allele na yun, kasama niya, regardless if it is dominant or recessive, basta may present ka ng dominant allele at either gene pair, it will hide the effect of the ovoid shape natin. So, yun yung duplicate gene na tinatawag. So, here you can see yung summary. So, sa novel phenotype, yung example natin, comb shape. It follows yung law ni Mendel na 9:3:3:1 na phenotypic ratio. Sa recessive epistasis natin, yung example natin, mice coat color, yung kalalabasan ngayon, 9:3:4. So, yun yung kalalabasan. Parang may tatlong kulay ka lang na makikita. Yung agouti, yung black, at saka yung white. Sa dominant epistasis na una, yung type 1, 12:3:1, while yung dominant epistasis sa feather color, 13:3. Sa complementary genes naman, 9:7, and then duplicate genes, 15:1. So, yun yung mga different types of gene interaction natin. So, yung laging tatandaan lang is yung mga rule kung paano nag-interact yung dalawang gene on the specific gene interaction. Then, let's go naman doon sa environmental influence on gene expression na tinatawag. Kasi, meron yan talagang, yung environment is a factor when it comes to gene expression. So, like for example, yung gene ng animal, yung goat, yung gene niya, it dictates na itong goat na to, mataas yung growth rate, maganda yung feed conversion efficiency. Pero, pag nilagay mo siya sa environment na hindi maganda yung nutrition, maraming stressor, then yung lalabas na phenotype, lalabas na trait nyon is mababang FCE at saka mababang growth rate. Kasi nga, kahit may gene ka na nagdi-dictate for high growth rate at saka magandang FCE kung pangit naman yung environment kung saan nandun yung organism, um, iba yung lalabas na phenotype. So, yun yung influence ng environment. So, ito yung parang, alam ko you are familiar with this formula wherein P is equal G plus E plus the interaction of G and E. Wherein yung phenotype, it is equal to the genotype plus the environment plus the interaction ngayon ng genotype at saka nung environment. So, yun yung formula in kung paano malalaman yung phenotype. So, hindi lang siya, yung phenotype, hindi lang siya dahil dun sa genotype, kung ano yung genes ng animal. At yung phenotype, hindi lang naman dahil dun sa environment na dahil doon sa environment kung saan naninirahan yung animal. So, meron niyang interaction. So, ano nga ba yung phenotype? So, alam ko naman, when we say phenotype, yun yung observable, measurable characteristic of an organism. So, like for example, yung mga mga coat color, presence of horn, mga growth rate, mga ano pa ba? Eye color, hair color, yun yung mga yun. Yun yung phenotype. Yung na-observe mo at saka na-measure mo na characteristic ng organism, yun yung phenotype. When we say genotype naman, it is the genetic expression of the individual, which is heritable. So, we're talking about genes na on a molecular level na hindi na natin na-observe on our naked eye. So, yun na yung genotype na tinatawag. So, it pertains to the genetic expression ng individual. So, yun na yung mga dominant natin na genes, yun na yung mga recessive natin na mga genes. So, itong genotype na to, it is heritable. Pwedeng maipasa yung gene ng parent doon sa offspring. Tapos, when we say naman na environment, it is any factor that is non-genetic. So, if it is, hindi siya involved sa mga genes natin, mga ganun, that is a factor na it will fall under environment. So, yung mga temperature natin, that is an environment. Yung humidity natin, it falls under environment. Yung mga management practices natin, those factors will fall under environment. Yung mga nutrition na binibigay mo, that will fall under environment pa rin. So, a given genotype may give rise to different phenotypes at different environments. So, sinasabi na kahit yung genotype mo, like for example, meron kang dominant A, which pertains to the high average daily gain. Now, yung genotype na yun, yung in a perfect environment, dapat yung expression ng animal will be mataas yung ADG kasi yun yung dinidictate ng genotype. Pero, because of environmental influence, yung genotype na yun, it may give rise to different phenotypes na depending on the environment. So, like for example, yung genotype na yun, yung it expresses yung high ADG. Nilagay mo siya doon sa environment kung saan maganda yung temperature, maganda yung humidity, maganda yung management practices, maganda yung nutrition ng animal, then yung i-express niya is yung genotype na high ADG. Pero pag nilagay mo ngayon yung animal that have a genotype dictating high ADG doon sa environment kung saan low nutrition, hindi maganda yung nutrition, hindi maganda yung management practices, maraming environmental stressor, iba na yung kalalabasan, iba na yung phenotype na lalabas. So, expect mo na mababa yung ADG kasi mababa yung nutrition, maraming stressor. So, yung phenotype expression niya ng average daily gain, mababa rin. So, yun, yung influence ng environment. Then, certain genotypes rin that are adapted in one environment may not survive in another. So, yun. Baka may gene ka on, like for example, you have genotype of the animal that expresses white color pag nasa cold temperature ka. So, yung genotype mo, genotype ng animal, it dictates white color pag nasa cold environment ka. Pero pag nilagay mo ngayon yung animal na yun that contains yung genotype for white color, if nasa cold siya, nilagay mo siya doon sa hot, sa warm temperature, hindi na ma-express yung white color. Iba na yung phenotype na lalabas. Either magiging brown, either magiging black, mga ganun. So, a classic example nun is yung merong hamster kasi na it is called winter white. So, yung winter white na yun, pag malamig yung panahon, white yung coat color. Pero pag mainit yung panahon, nagiging brown yung coat color. So, yun. Certain genotypes may survive on a specific environment, pero pag nilagay mo na siya on a different environment, hindi na siya makaka-survive. So, with that, ito yung mga ano natin, kailangan nating i-discuss on environmental influence. So, let's discuss first yung mga definition of terms doon sa penetrance, doon sa expressivity na tinatawag, doon sa pleiotropy, kung ano yung penocopy, pinocopy na tinatawag, then let's discuss rin yung external at saka internal environment. So sa external environment, yun yung mga temperature natin, light, nutrition, maternal relation. And then sa internal environment natin, dito yung age, yung sex, at saka substrates. So with that, let's go dun sa penetrance na tinatawag. So when we say penetrance, it is the proportion of genotype that shows an expected phenotype. So may proportion daw doon sa genotype that na-express lang yung expected phenotype. So there is a probability of the gene or trait to be expressed. So sa penetrance, may dalawa kang type. You have yung complete penetrance na tinatawag at saka yung incomplete penetrance na tinatawag. So sa complete penetrance, it is determined when all of the individual in a population shows the expected phenotype. So yun yung complete penetrance. So here, like for example, green color. Like for example lang, green color. So lahat nung individual doon sa population na-express yung green color. Yun yung complete penetrance. Sa incomplete penetrance naman, it is when yung mga few individual lang yung nagpapakita ng expected phenotype. So yung expected phenotype natin yung green color. So dito sa incomplete penetrance, hindi lahat nung nasa population, hindi lahat ng mga organism doon sa population, it will express yung green color. Iilan lang, kaya incomplete penetrance yung tawag doon. So when we say expressivity naman, this is the degree to which a particular phenotypic effect is exhibited by an individual. So dito sa expressivity, you assume na yung mga traits, yung trait na yun, na-express lahat doon sa population. Na-express lahat ng mga individual sa population. Yung pagkaibahan lang niya is meron yung tinatawag na narrow expressivity. So sa narrow expressivity, all of the individual shows the expected phenotype, which is yung, sa example natin, kulay green. Sa variable expressivity naman, uh, the degree of expression differ in expressivity na. So meaning, nakikita mo pa rin na merong color green, pero yung expression ng kulay na green, um, variable or it varies. So, merong kang makikita sa population na darker green, meron kang nakikita na medyo lighter green, meron kang nakikita na medyo nagiging white, green and white na siya. So yun, variable yung expression ng phenotype na yun. So yun yung expressivity na tinatawag. Now, doon sa pleiotropy naman, it comes from the Greek word more and tropos way. So, more way na maano yung gene. So, effect of certain genotype influences more than one observable trait in an individual. So, more way na yung gene na yon, it expresses yung traits doon sa individual. So, single allele influencing more than one distinct trait. So, yun yung pleiotropy. So, meaning yung gene na yun, di ba sa mga examples natin, yung gene, it only pertains to one specific phenotype, mga ganon. Pero sa pleiotropy na tinatawag, yung, yung gene na yun, it will parang it will give rise to more than one trait, to more than one observable trait. So, yung pleiotropy, ito yung nagkukos ng genetic correlation doon sa population. Then, when we say plenocopy naman, an environmental mimic of gene action. So, I'm sorry, hindi dapat ple, wala dapat L. So, phenocopy to, PH. So, phenocopy is a variation in phenotype, generally referring to a single trait which is caused by environmental condition. So, as the name implies, kinakopy niya yung phenotype yung phenotype that is dapat ine-express nung gene natin. So, yung environment yung nagmimimik or yung gumagaya. So, an example of this phenocopy is yung sa Himalayan rabbits. So, when raised in moderate temperature, yung mga Himalayan rabbits natin, they express yung white in color with black tail, nose, and ears, making them phenotypically distinguishable from yung genetically black rabbits. So, however, when they are raised in cold temperature, yung mga Himalayan rabbits natin show black coloration of their coats that resembles yung genetically black rabbits natin. So, yung conclusion nito is yung Himalayan rabbits natin is a phenocopy of the genetically black rabbit. Kasi, parang kinakopy, parang dinidictate ng environment yung expression ng phenotype niya. Na pag sa warm environment daw, white color with black spots, yung Himalayan rabbit. Then, pag pumunta siya dun sa colder environment, nagiging black siya, which is the same with the genetically black Himalayan rabbit. So, meron kasing black Himalayan rabbit na yung nag-i-influence dun sa phenotype niya is yung genotype. At saka meron rin yung Himalayan white rabbit na nagiging black siya due to the influence of the environment and not the gene. So yun yung phenocopy. Minimimic nung environment or may affect yung environment on the um, expression ng phenotype. Minimimic niya yung expression rin ng genotype. So, with that, let's go doon sa external environment on how it influences yung ano natin, yung mga phenotype natin. So, temperature, close correlation between the rate of the chemical reaction and the temperature. So, mayroon parang yung temperature kasi meron siyang parang ginagawa on the um, on the chemical reaction nung certain organism na yon, which can lead to changes in its phenotype. So, yung a change in temperature is expected to have an effect on the development. So, here we have an example. Sa room temperature daw, itong bulaklak na ito, ganito yung expression. Um, color red, tapos meron yellow sa gitna. Pero if it is more than 30 degrees Celsius, nagiging white siya. So, yun yung influence ng temperature. Meron talagang parang direct effect yung temperature on the chemical reactions that may change the color of the flower. Another example is if um, yung average daily gain. So, pag yung average daily gain ng goat nasa 1.2 nasa 0.5 kilogram per day yung dapat na average daily gain niya, yung ine-express ng genotype niya. So sa room temperature or dun sa temperature na comfortable siya, dun sa lower temperatures, na-express yung 0.5 kilogram na ADG. Pero pag yung temperature um, is tumaas bigla, naging 35 degrees Celsius, then yung ADG niya baka bumaba. Kasi yung animal, may mga certain metabolic reaction siya that will decrease yung feed intake, decrease yung average daily gain niya. So, yun. Merong influence talaga yung temperature on the expression of the phenotype. Now, dito naman sa light. Sa light, yun yung energy that is provided by light, and light itself is essential for the growth and development of plant and animals. As you can see here, kahit naman magkapareho sila ng genotype, magkapareho sila na nanggaling sa iisang parent, pero yung isa na-providean ng light, yung isa hindi na-providean ng light. So makikita naman dito sa picture ko yung expression ng phenotype. Yung isa maganda yung pag-grow, yung isa ganito lang. So yun, light also have an influence. Then sa nutrition kasi, food that provides energy for carrying out necessary processes and materials that must be incorporated into necessary substrates. So, different organisms differ in the kind of amount of nutrients they require. So, depending upon its genotype, simple dietary changes can lead to different phenotype, as you can see here. So, for example, yung sa nutrition, mas marami kang binibigay na, for example, yellow corn. So, yung expression na ngayon or yung expression ng phenotype nung chicken is talagang orange to dark yellow yung ano niya, yung yolk color niya. Now, pag binigyan mo siya ng, like for example, mga purely rice, yung pinapakain mo sa native chicken mo, wala kang binibigay na yellow color, then mapapansin mo talaga na nagiging lighter yung yolk color. So, yun, sa nutrition, meron ring um, influence. Then, kabaliktaran, if yung native chicken mo, yung talagang phenotype niya is, yung expression ng yolk color niya is light color. Yellow, light yellow to parang, yun, light yellow. Then, pinakain mo siya ng maraming yellow corn. Pinakain mo siya ng ah, maraming mga corn. Then, mag-iiba yung yolk color niya, magiging dark orange. So, yon. Merong effect yung nutrition, kahit na simple dietary changes, it may lead to different phenotype na. So, sa maternal relation naman, when we say maternal relation, ito yung interaction between yung uh, the blood type of the mother and the baby, which may lead to phenotypic changes to the baby. So in the case of mammals, the interaction between the fetus and the maternal environment occurs. So yun nga, yung sinasabi kong blood type, incompatibility between the mother and the offspring. Then, yung age naman, dito na sa internal environment, um, meron parang influence yung age kung saan may mga specific age lang, certain age lang kung saan na-express itong mga phenotype na ito. So, mostly yung mga phenotype na express kasi is yung mga diseases. So, like for example, itong alkaptonuria na tinatawag. So, na-express ito upon birth. So, hindi na to na-express kung nasa 1-year-old ka na, nasa 10-year-old na yung 10-year-old ka na. So, hindi na na-express yung alkaptonuria. Specific lang siya upon the birth of the organism or the individual. So, another one is vitamin D resistant rickets na tinatawag na phenotype. So, na-express siya during 1 year of age ng individual. Hindi siya na-express during birth, hindi siya na-express during sa 20 to 30 years old. Na-express lang siya during yung 1 year of age. Then yung diabetes mellitus na tinatawag. Na-express lang siya sa mga nagkakaedad sa 40 to 60 years old. Hindi siya na-express sa 1 year old, hindi siya na-express sa 2.5 years old. Sa pattern baldness, talagang makikita naman ito sa mga 20 to 30 years old. Kung may gene ka that dictates yung phenotype na pattern baldness, makikita ito during 20 to 30 years old. Pero hindi mo siya makikita pag bata yung tao. Pag nasa 1 year old, nasa 2.5 years old siya. So yun yung influence ng age. Certain phenotype will only be expressed on specific ages. Then, sex link naman, we have yung sex naman, you have yung sex link, sex limited, at saka sex influence na tinatawag. So, sa sex link, depende kung lalaki or babae ka yan. So, yung parang pattern ng feather, so ganito pag babae, ganito naman pag sa lalaki. Then doon sa sex limited, it is only limited to one sex, yung phenotype niya. So, yung phenotype for egg laying, hindi naman ito na-express sa mga lalaki. So, na-express lang ito sa mga babaeng chicken, yung mga hens natin. Kaya nga, sex limited siya. So, yun, na-express lang doon sa isang sex lang. Another one is yung pag-produce ng milk. So, hindi naman ito na-express sa mga bull natin. So, na-express lang ito sa mga cattle natin. So, yun yung sex limited na tinatawag. Now, for sex influence naman, merong influence yung sex to the degree of expression ng phenotype mo. So, here, you have yung example, yung pattern baldness or yung pattern hair loss. makikita na sa female, yung pattern hair loss, ganito lang. Hindi masyadong nalulos yung hair, ah, nalulos yung hair when compared doon sa male na kung saan talagang kitang-kita yung pagka-baldness. So yun, may influence yung sex doon sa expression ngayon ng phenotype. So yun lang, yung sa sex. Then sa substrates naman, the reaction that happens on the body of the organism depends on the substrates that are present. So nakadepende rin yan kung ano yung um, ini-insert mo, ini-inject mo na substrate doon sa body ng animal. So the phenotypic expression will depend on the substrates na. So with that, we also have what sinali ko to, yung twin studies na tinatawag. So um, we have here yung identical twins na tinatawag. So they are genetically alike and they are subjected to the same environment. Yun yung identical twins. So yung same environment, ito yung environment doon sa sinapupunan ng nanay, doon sa uterus ng nanay, doon sa loob ng nanay kung saan nade-develop yung twin. So identical sila because they have the same gene at saka they experience the same environment. Now when we say fraternal twins naman, they are not genetically alike but they are subjected to the same environment. So hindi sila magkapareho ng gene, pwedeng lalaki or babae na twins yon, pero uh, they are subjected to the same environment. So ito, sa twin studies kasi, we have here what we call as genetic concordance among identical and fraternal twins. So, dito makikita na yung age of sitting up, yung concordance sa identical twins, 82%. Yung sa fraternal twins, 76%. So, yung ano nito, may effect yung environment, especially on the age. So if the trait is both shown on the pair, it is concordance if only one of the pair showed that it is concordance. Pero pag only one pair showed that trait, then this is this concordance na tinatawag, kung iisa lang. So, yung extent kasi ng concordance of the twin may be used to measure yung role of the environment and the heredity in the expression of the phenotype. So kung mataas itong concordance, pag nasa 82%, doon sa identical twins, and then, for example, itong eye color, kung mataas yung concordance dito sa identical twins, 99.6%, and then mababa doon sa fraternal twins, yung concordance niya is mababa, then that trait may be considered to have a strong hereditary element. Meaning, merong influence yung genotype. Merong influence yung gene at saka mababa lang yung influence ng environment. Pero pag yung concordance nila parehong mataas, then meaning merong influence yung environment. So yun yung explanation lang nito. So meaning, yung age of sitting up, yung nakaka-influence doon is yung environment ng identical twins and yung fraternal twins. Now, yung age of walking, hair color, eye color, diabetes mellitus, rickets, feeble-mindedness, since mas mataas yung concordance ng identical twins compared doon sa fraternal twins, meaning, yung nag-i-influence dito sa mga phenotype na to is yung genes at hindi yung environment. Tapos, if itong blood pressure, criminality, medyo mataas yung identical twins pero hindi naman ganun kababa yung fraternal twins, merong meron yung influence ng genes, yung genetic natin, uh, with a little influence ng environment. So, yun na yung blood pressure at saka criminality na tinatawag. So, with that, that ends my lecture on the um, doon sa mga gene interaction at saka dito sa um, influence, environmental influence. Influence ng environment sa phenotypic expression. So with that, thank you for listening.